Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 191. Today we're going to discuss Jeffrey Epstein's estate and the battle that is being waged over it. We know that down in the Virgin Islands, it's a knockdown, drag-out war right now over this estate. We know that both sides seem to be playing for keeps, with Denise George raising the stakes with just about every other comment we hear from her, and Indike and Khan digging their heels in and not budging an inch. So it's at a point where they're crashing heads so much that the court is going to have to step in and be the arbiter of what is fair and what is not fair, since the two sides can't come to an agreement. Now, while all of that is occurring in the Virgin Islands, you still have the wheels of justice moving elsewhere as well. So tonight's story is from the Daily News, and it's about a case that's going on in New York and a request from one of the lawyers of the survivors. The headline, Jeffrey Epstein's estate fighting alleged survivors' effort to videotape visit to Perv's mansion and island. This article was published by the Daily News, and the author is Stephen Rex Brown. No visitors allowed, even in death. Jeffrey Epstein's estate is fighting a legal effort by one of his alleged survivors to send a video crew to the Perv's Upper East Side mansion and island retreat. Why would they be fighting that? Why would they be fighting that? What's there to hide at this point? Nobody lives there, right? Epstein's gone. So why don't you just let the lawyers' team of journalists or whatever go in there, maybe even figure it out, you have somebody accompanies them or whatever, and let them get the footage to help build their case. You see, even in death, these people are being obtuse and trying to protect Jeffrey Epstein's legacy and digging in, where they should just, at this point, Indike and Khan are just really, it's at the point where they're digging themselves into just a gigantic, deep hole. And they're just going to be suffocated by it because their actions are not the sort of thing that these judges are going to look kindly upon. And I think we're going to see a lot more movement towards the judges having less patience with Khan and Indike as we move forward with this case. The survivor, identified in papers only as Priscilla Doe, wants to film the areas where she says she was abused and show a jury through video footage that she could not easily escape the multimillionaire sex offender. I think this is a valid request, and honestly, I have no idea why Indike or Khan would be against this request. The only reason you would stand against a request like this or stand in the way of a request like this is because you're trying to be difficult. You want it to be difficult for these survivors to continue to build their case. Indike and Khan know that Epstein is guilty as hell, and they also know that his co-conspirators are guilty as hell. So what they're trying to do is just be as difficult as possible and make the job of these survivors and their lawyers as hard as possible to drag this out till the very, very, very end. And the courts are going to have to step in at some point and force the estate to comply with some of the conditions that are set forth. The grandeur and opulence of the Epstein properties alone demonstrate the power disparity between Epstein and Doe, and thus are directly relevant to critical issues to be tried in this case. Doe's attorney, Brad Edwards, wrote in a letter filed late Monday in Manhattan Federal Court. And you know Bradley Edwards from our previous posts on the podcast. You know about his book, Relentless Pursuit, and you know that Bradley Edwards is a man that's not going to be thrown off the case easily. So you and me and everybody else should expect Bradley Edwards to go hard in the paint here to try and get the court to rule in their favor of having a team go in there and record and document what the place looked like for the reasons put forward by Bradley Edwards. Moreover, Doe believes that the layout of the various properties will demonstrate ways in which she was manipulated by Epstein. For example, the complex web of various floors and rooms in the New York mansion created their own obstructions for girls and young women trying to avoid Epstein's sexual depredations. particularly since Epstein survivors were unfamiliar with how to navigate through the property. And Epstein's island had its own nautical obstacles, keeping his survivors from escaping. And while I have never been to either of those places physically to check them out, from the pictures that we have seen, we can definitely tell that that townhouse was vast and you could probably get lost in it, right? It's a big place. Now, as far as the island, definitely that would be hard to navigate if you don't know where you're going, for sure. It would definitely be a difficult task to get out on that island and, try and feel your way around at night, maybe. One thing that they don't talk about here, though, is New Mexico and how vast that property is and how impossible it would be to escape Jeffrey Epstein and his friends if they were at Zorro Ranch. I'm telling you right now, I have been there. I have seen it for myself. I took the drive all the way from Santa Fe into Zorro Ranch, and the desolation was mind-numbing. It is the perfect place for Epstein and his pals to be involved in a trafficking ring. There is nothing around for mile upon mile. So I really think that more needs to go into the New Mexico ranch being dragged into this as well. And it still hasn't been raided, right? The feds still have not raided Zorro Ranch. Epstein attorney Benny Moskowitz wrote that the site visits would be unduly burdensome to carry out. Oh, too burdensome. I mean, we can't be bothered for any of this. I mean, we're the executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. How dare you try and build your case? It's basically what this guy's saying. Too burdensome? Well, then maybe you people aren't the right people to be involved as the executors of the estate. Get some people involved who it wouldn't be a burden to put it on them to make sure that this happens. Isn't the whole point of bringing these people together, the fund and the estate, etc., to compensate these survivors? The estate knows that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in all of this. The estate knows that Jeffrey Epstein is guilty as hell in all of this. So why is the estate being so difficult when it comes to administering these funds and letting these survivors tell their stories even after receiving those funds? Now, if you put the puzzle together and you look at the big picture, you understand the reason behind that is because there are a lot of other things going on, a lot of other people that are still involved, that are pulling strings from behind the scenes. And one of those people, as we have established time and time again here on the podcast and elsewhere, is Ghislaine Maxwell. Again, do you really think that it wasn't calculated that she talked about her emails being so-called hacked? Or any of the other comments she's put out through Laura Goldman? Do you think that those weren't all planned? That wasn't all calculated? Ghislaine Maxwell is still in the thick of this. And the fact that they're trying to add her to the immunity deal once again just shows you everything you need to know about how deep her involvement goes. Such inspections, which would require significant expense, are not proportional to the needs of the cases, he wrote, but yet they have money to cut the flowers, they have money to keep the power on, they have money for the lights to still be on all of these properties, but it's too burdensome, and it costs too much money to send a team in to document what the houses look like for the defense. I mean, for the survivors' lawyers. Yeah, it's way too big of a job, way too difficult of a job, boys. Give me a break. Nobody's buying this. And how do these judges buy this kind of shit? You see judges all the time agree with crap like this, and it's mind-boggling how these judges can agree with some of these just insane defense strategies that you see these lawyers put forward. Doe is among more than a dozen Epstein survivors who have sued his estate seeking damages for his alleged abuse. An out-of-court claims program is mired in delays due to the opposition from the Virgin Islands Attorney General. And you know about that. We've talked about that at length, and when I opened up the show, I touched on that a little bit. And there is a serious battle royale occurring right now. These people are in a tug of war over the estate, and Denise George is starting to throw around some serious words down there, like the word RICO. Like, we've been crying about RICO on this podcast. Literally, I'll call it crying at this point because I feel like I'm whining about it on a regular basis. But it's the biggest bazooka in their arsenal. I knew and I know that if they drop a RICO charge on these people, it is going to be a wrap. And that is what Denise George is threatening down there. So I hope that in the Virgin Islands, we see some movement that way, and we see that it's more than a threat, because really, if they do that, it's going to be a complete game changer, folks, an absolute game changer. All of the little peons of the organization will be rounded up, brought in, questioned, and they'll all be forced to turn on each other, because they'll be looking at 20-year sentences. Just take a look at NXIVM. Just take a look at Keith Raniere, Allison Mack, NXIVM, the Bronfmans, and that whole entire organization and how it was toppled. That is the blueprint. That, my friends, is the template. Epstein hanged himself behind bars in August while awaiting trial for sex trafficking. Allegedly. So, there you have it, folks. The battle rages on for Jeffrey Epstein's fortune. And, as usual, the executors of the estate are being difficult. Should have we expected anything different from Indike and Khan? Of course not. If you know who they are and how they operate, you certainly did not expect anything different in this case. The one thing that they don't have this time, though, that they always had in their pocket, the ace up their sleeve, was always Jeffrey Epstein and his connections to the very tippy top. But guess what? Epstein's gone, and those connections have gone with Epstein. Now, anybody who's doing any sort of protecting or obfuscating is doing it solely to protect themselves, because this operation right here, this portion of the operation, has been completely and utterly exposed to the public for everyone to see. Now, unfortunately, we all know that this is just one of many operations like this around the world, and it's an unfortunate fact, and it's an unfortunate truth that there are many, many operations such as this. But what happens is, if we pursue the Epstein organization and just destroy it and crush it the way it should be crushed, it sends a message to the rest of these people that it does not matter what circle you run in. It does not matter what pictures and paintings of celebrities you have on your walls. We are coming for you, and we will crush you under heel if you engage in any sort of human trafficking operation. That is the message that needs to be sent, and that is the message that will be sent if and when they round all of these scumbags up in a RICO case. All right, folks, tomorrow I am going to be talking with Maria Farmer here on the podcast, and you'll hear from her directly about some of the things that she's had to deal with due to her situation with Jeffrey Epstein in the past and how things unfolded. So I've been talking to Maria for several months now. She reached out to me in January, and her and I have been talking for several months, and we've gotten to know each other, I'd say, relatively well, and I would consider her a friend at this point. So tomorrow, her and I are going to record a segment, and I will be airing it here on the podcast tomorrow evening. You do not want to miss this one. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, until tomorrow, I hope you all have a fantastic evening.